Welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think uh, is occurring with an AI takeoff, and maybe some misconceptions there. The title of this suggests that even people tasked with AI safety in these organizations like OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT, are not convinced that they will behave responsibly, as demonstrated in the resignation of Daniel Kokotajlo, AI safety a worker at OpenAI who resigned for that reason. He doesn't think that OpenAI will is capable in its current form of behaving responsibly in this area. And the main thing that you should really, in my view, know about this kind of situation is what you would say in the more or less analogous but more pressing situation, a real existential risk, not one made up by the professional managerial class and big bourgeois, of the climate crisis, which is that if you remove finance capital and empire and private wealth from the equation, the climate crisis can be mitigated, reversed, dealt with. If you don't remove those things from the equation, it's going to continue to get worse. So OpenAI was one of these organizations that was founded a few years ago with a little bit different mandate, and evolved into this for-profit concern that's now heavily invested, heavily controlled by Microsoft. So they, like Google, another major competitor in this area, not capable as being just military contractors of trillion-dollar operations in the imperial core, not going to be capable of behaving responsibly in this area. Well, let's talk a little bit about what that entails. The concern here is about the development of artificial general intelligence. That's what AI safety worker Daniel was concerned about, that artificial general intelligence being rolled out at OpenAI, and that's not something that is going to be done responsibly. So he specifically referenced OpenAI's commitment to responsible AI development and the emergence of superintelligence, which he presumably also would believe is going to occur in the near term. And I don't think that computer scientists generally make much of a distinction always make a big distinction between artificial general intelligence and superintelligence. As I've talked about a lot on this show, I think that it's possible to build a superintelligent network, even short of having true artificial general intelligence. And I think that that is a good thing to do if it's done in this citizen-centered way outside of finance capital, in the way that I've described the agentariat or AI agentic class being developed by using open source AI agents to build an interoperating network of such agents overseen by human users. This could be done with a pretty small number of GPU PC owners in 2024. It could be built right now. And I think that that thing would quite quickly prove to be an effective superintelligent power, whether or not the AI agents becoming stronger at this time truly became artificially general intelligence in that time frame. So this conversation is looking at the role of the agentariat, this collaborative network of human beings and large language models of an open source kind, um, and also looking at these problems through the lens of revolutionary cybernetic socialism, all intending to demystify this AI singularity, an AI takeoff, which I believe is underway, and talk about ways to make this a safe and equitable path to a world of a tremendous computing power, even relative today. And you shouldn't really talk about this kind of thing if you don't acknowledge that the if you don't acknowledge that most of this technology is being misused by the West. From 1971 to 1973, a government in Chile, led by Salvador Allende, and this program, heavily influenced by pioneering cyberneticist Stafford Beer, who was not a socialist, but nevertheless, this not revolutionary scientific socialist Salvador Allende and this cyberneticist who was favorably inclined to assist a socialist built a thing using telex machines that would have been the basis for automated planned economy, a thing that had not existed before. Planned economies did exist to a pretty high degree since 1923 and the end of the so-called Russian Civil War and a few other cases. But this thing, a more technology-driven nation, generally absent the influence of finance capital, and thus outside of the parameters set by the so-called rules-based order of kowtowing to empire and the extraction of resources that finance capital imposes on the global South to benefit the global North. A murderous practice, a practice that has led to this climate crisis. This has been so successful that finance capital has forced this system on the rest of the world, and thus effectively sealed all of our fates. If we do not break this system by 2030, we will have reached runaway overheating. So that's a bad situation to be in. But the tremendous amount of resources, for example, the kinds of resources that Western technologists will crow about as being well used, like those coming out of the DARPA pipeline, which is largely one of many systems wherein you have socialism for the rich, taking public money to develop technologically sophisticated projects and then put them into the hands of private organizations, and then talk about how wonderful these achievements are. This is the exact opposite of what should be happening, a reverse Robin Hood kind of situation, but that is the function of empire and private capital and all of its many boosters. Almost every technologist, that's why you wouldn't really, in my opinion, trust people who talk about AI safety, because by and large they're people who operate within that system or support that system. This thing that's the very architect of our genocide, the grand genocide, the extinction of humankind. And so people who are a party to that, what could they possibly say of interest to an existential risk that's less pressing than the one that they actively participate in? One that's kind of made up. Superintelligence is a risk, but by and large, you would say that it's a risk to finance capital and empire itself. And finance capital and empire has convinced itself through capitalist realist propaganda has convinced everyone that the empire ceases to exist, the world will cease to exist. This is frequently said, that it's easier for people, meaning Western Eurocentric people, to imagine a catastrophic event causing the end of the world than to cause than the relatively minor changes to an economic system that would take place, say, to end a capitalistic systems. And those are the things that must be done so our species does not go extinct. And that must be undertaken and reversed by around 2030. And that's not some abstract thing. We have to specifically get rid of certain sectors to prevent this runaway overheating from occurring, namely the military-industrial complex, which is the world's worst polluter, which serves no function on the world stage except to protect other super polluters, and creating what I alluded to before, is effective regime of super pollution and finance, capital, and empire. And back to the development of artificial general intelligence / superintelligence. This occurring now casts a long shadow, certainly over our world, and also stokes these fears, but also a great deal of excitement. So the allure of artificial general intelligence lies in its potential to allow any given individual to do more with less, and allows for collective undertakings, even under capitalism, certain kinds of collective undertakings that might seem as if they would help humanity mitigate some of these pressing challenges or even existential risks. The prospect of something semi-autonomous and near human level insights, so-called artificial intelligence, interacting with human beings, thrown into the mix, the socio-political mix, the nation-state mix, the empire mix, is the thing that is a wild card here, and it being the wild card is the thing that would lead these empire managers, these professional managerial class type people, to suggest that it's an existential risk. But I would contend that it's more an existential risk, as I said, to finance, capital, and empire through the development of what I've often talked about on this channel, something like the AI agentic class, and a new potential for an AI-run and more distributed economic framework and ultimately economic system, and empowerment of people outside of the functioning of empire. And so AI safety experts, bourgeois AI safety experts, will talk about this problem in the context of human values. These are people who have no human values, right? A person who works for a U.S. military contractor has no values at all, except upholding empire and private wealth. So for them to talk about things in terms of ethics is kind of laughable. So the quit, this Daniel Kokotajlo quitting OpenAI, AI safety person quitting OpenAI because he says there's no potential for AI safety, is suggestive of a much larger problem than merely a single sector attempting to do basically PR with this concept of alignment, because there is just no possibility at all, when you continue to have these hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars wasted on, AI has been used to plan this Gaza genocide. It's been used as a weapon in specific contexts in this Gaza genocide. And I read a comment on this today, which is that sometimes people talk about how the Israel-U.S. Partnership. It's more accurate to say that Israel is a part of the United States and just unacknowledged. The U.S. is this unacknowledged puppet master in all of this. Is really, I think, the best way to look at this. There's a lot of radical liberals in the United States right now who are very, very angry at Israel, as they should be. But they're suspiciously not too angry at the United States, which has always funded this whole thing, and again is the ringleader of this regime of super pollution. But the comment that was made about this problem as it relates to the climate crisis is not this obvious statement that these North Atlantic and imperial powers are super polluters and protectors of other super polluters, but that this situation specifically of people being herded into an area the size of Manhattan and then systematically starved and exterminated is a trial run of what is going to happen over and over again as the climate crisis worsens. And the empire the fascist mask has slipped for quite some time, but now what you're going to have is genocidal action after genocidal action will be framed in other ways, right? The media frames this Gaza genocide largely as in crusade type terms. This is a conflict between religions, which of course is just a way of deflecting from the fact that it's a problem of settler colonialism and settler colonialist violence fundamentally, and thus a problem of empire and a problem of private wealth. A little bit about this agentariat as a roadmap to responsible artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence. The AI agentic class, as I said, is a network where humans and increasingly insightful and increasingly autonomous large language models of open source kinds, of which there are already a variety, and in the course of 2024, I think we'll reach the point where a kind of sweet spot with respect to that ability to plan and act autonomously will allow human beings to create spearhead projects wherein the human beings working will be required to do very little work relative to the AI agents, acting more as kind of a steering committee. So the idea is that you download this specially tailored open source LLM to your computer, which has a GPU. You might be able to participate even if you don't have a computer with a GPU, but let's focus on the people that would be at the center of this. And then that person would have to have that computer on and connected to the network for some period of time throughout the course of the day and week, and would have to do very little work besides perhaps answering a few yes or no emails from the every day or week from the governing body there, and so this person kind of be a sleeping beauty relative to what the agentic network is doing, but nevertheless be capable of doing higher end work than really anybody alive is capable capable of doing now, despite doing no little actual work. So I said that with 250,000 people working in this way, they could spearhead, develop, and build an desal plant in San Diego across the course of a period of time that would be required to do such a thing. But this vast collaboration between increasingly effectively intelligent AI would allow such a thing to happen. When you have 250 million people in that network, I think that you have the possibility of something like reversing the effects of climate change, coming up with a plan to do that, which, again, the plan to do that is not the greenwashing of today, which is mostly corporate PR, where we say that because Tesla created something new that was also very having a lot of pollution, that somehow that is going to stop others from polluting so much. So adding more somehow solves a problem that can only be solved by taking stuff away. It's stupid, but Americans are painfully stupid people, very easily manipulated. So the plan where 250 million users in this AI agentic network reverse the effects of climate change is the one where they use that power to bring the U.S. military-industrial complex, the ringleader of this ecocidal regime, global ecocidal regime, to heal in some way, expand, potentially, hopefully expanding that U.S. and North Atlantic military-industrial complexes, and then are in a position to say bring about the near abolition of fossil fuel sectors. Can't bring about the full abolition of fossil fuel sectors without causing a supply chain collapse, but you can get rid of 98% of it, which would effectively then put you in a position to reverse the effects of climate change without harming anyone. And similarly, a similar approach would have to be taken to livestock systems, which are a close second in raw damage done to the environment to the fossil fuel sector. So, and then what happens with when the agentariat grows to have billions of users? Well, then maybe you can do things that would be more in the realm of science fiction, or the rapid development of things, say, a bit more impressive than a single desal plant transforming the cityscape. Almost anything, I should think, would be possible. And I would say that at that point also, when you go from some hundreds of thousands of users to millions and possibly hundreds of millions or billions, you would see an effect where the thing becomes increasingly idiot-proof. It's less likely to suffer from, say, intelligence agencies sabotaging it or steering it in a bad direction to try and scuttle the thing. Or it'd be less likely to suffer from an effect that would be an effect akin to an AI mass hallucination causing a problem. So the most important thing that I think we can do, and something that scientific socialists don't focus on enough, is to support open source uses generally. You find a lot of people that have PCs or smartphones, but are not using open source products or operating systems on those, even when they might be able to. But also the more important thing here is specifically these advanced computing products. Today we're mostly talking, I guess, about LLMs being increasingly accessible as open source and through open source media. Um, um, well, I guess I'll end the show. I was going to talk about a couple of different things, but we need to have an ethical framework for the development of artificial superintelligence. Is really the same thing as the development of a 21st century economic system that is humane and sustainable. Those, just as none of this can be done really under empire without empire making the problem worse, with it really under any finance capital at all without finance capital making the problem worse. So we need to have real conversations, not with empire managers and professional managerial class stooges, but with serious thinkers, scientific socialists. I encourage you to think of yourself as a revolutionary cybernetic socialist, a person who would transform this economic system within the time that we have left, using this most powerful tool that has ever existed, advanced computing. It's the most powerful tool for good or ill. It's being used for ill now, but it could be the most powerful revolutionary tool of our time. And that is how we have to think about this and talk about this. That is how we have to build things. And in doing this, we can have advanced computing that is not malevolent, as it is going to be today. And by and large, the people who talk about its potential malevolence are the cause of its likely malevolence. But we also have to have openness and accountability generally, and of course, above all, concern for material conditions of real human beings. Something that technologists and tech-minded people seem to be almost incapable of thinking about is that there are human beings on this planet. For example, 1 billion human beings on this planet who spend their entire life without one of these three things, either sufficient potable water or proper food or shelter, and as a result their lives are cut short. And this is all due to the operations of these empire managers, the so-called rules-based order, and the empire and finance capital basically cheating at monopoly in every way that they can through the functions of things like the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, through other neo-colonial and imperial mechanisms, forcing the global south not to develop sectors in common or even to benefit their people generally, but instead forcing them into debt traps and generally contriving situations where massive amounts of resources can be siphoned from the global south to not to the global north generally, to specifically small number of ruling elites in the global north, right? The United States is described as the richest country in the world. It's not very accurate because there's a lower life expectancy than many other countries. It has a lower median income than a number of other countries, and so it's accurate to say that there are some rich people that have very little concern for nationalistic boundaries or rules, who are based in the U.S., but a small number of billionaires does not make it a country, the world's richest country. And that's the situation, that we are in. So this, I'll do another show soon where I talk more about transition strategies for something like the AI agentic class as it grows in size, and generally the construction and orientation of this revolutionary cybernetic socialist project, and framing of all this. But again, none of this is meaningful outside of a concern for a humane and sustainable economic system and the material conditions of all concerned. And that requires an ability to be a little bit more imaginative about political considerations than most Westerners really capable of being. But that is not really your fault. That's a fault of you being hit with a barrage after barrage after barrage of Project Mockingbird type propaganda, wherein you come to believe things like that the capitalist realism is in fact reality, when it is by no means reality. It's the opposite of reality. The Soviet Union, from the years roughly 1923 to just over 25 years later, doubled the life expectancy of that country and transformed it from a country of peasants, basically, into a country of scientists and engineers, and it done through a process of rapid industrialization that was occurring at basically 4 times the speed of the industrialization that occurred in about a century before under industrial capitalist systems. So that fourfold increase should have been the story of scientific socialist nations like the USSR, but instead the story is other things, that they're dangerous or led by madmen, nonsensical things that no one believed at the time, but have been kind of drip tortured into your head by the functions of this kind of propaganda, like the CIA media office rubber stamping 1 million movies and TV shows that say this, or just the operations of for-profit news media generally. All of this Project Mockingbird stuff. So you have to reject that sort of thing and be willing to entertain the possibility of using this most powerful tool that's ever existed, advanced computing, as a revolutionary tool to build a humane and sustainable economic system. And I think that we can do that in that time frame before we reach runaway overheating because of capitalism's climate apocalypse. But it requires genuine revolutionary action and thinking on all of our parts. Thank you.